So today I'm joined by my pal, my mate, my buddy, my brother, Sam. Sam, it's great to have you with us. Do you know what? Rather than me talk about you, Sam, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. My name's Sam. I'm a husband, a father of three,
Wow.
a brother of four siblings.
Wow, Ziz. Okay.
Yeah, big family, big family. Um, I work a regular 9 to 5. Yeah, paying the piper, giving unto Caesar what is Caesar's. I'm grateful to God for it.
And
What else?
how long have you
I
been
think
married for? How long have you been married for?
been married for 11 years this year.
Okay.
So 11 years in September this year.
Yeah.
So we went past the 10-year mark. We made it
Wow.
past the 10-year mark,
Wow. Congrats.
which is a
Congrats.
miracle in itself.
Amazing. 11
Uh,
years. That's incredible. And you've got three children. How old are they? Boys, girls?
so I've got two boys. Jeremiah, the eldest, is 8.
Okay.
Then I've got Ezra, who's 4, turning 5 in May. So
Okay.
not long from now. And then we've got Atara, who's 3, the baby girl.
Wow.
She made sure she came through. She's a blessing. She's a blessing. We weren't expecting her, but she was the overflow,
Love
the
that.
exceedingly and abundantly.
I love that. I love that.
uh,
Cool, cool. So I know you're a pal. We're friends. We met in Jubilee Church. Shout out Jubilee Church, and I know your lovely wife as well. Shout out to Sella.
yes, definitely.
Been married for 11 years. So take yourself back to when you were um, uh, fresh and about it, a much younger version of yourself,
Mate.
and your paths, the path with Stella had crossed. Like what was it in you that made you intentional about dating? What was it in you that made you go, do you know what? I'm gonna have a razor sharp focus on Stella.
So when I met Stella, actually, I went to go just cause problems. Um, yeah, I was at uni at the time. I was studying. I got bored, so I thought what I'll typically do is I'll speak to some friends or just take a walk or something like that.
Mm.
And then this was back in high five days, if you remember that.
Okay, yeah. So this is before Snapchat. This is before
Man, we're
Facebook,
going back
even high five.
way back,
Hey,
way back.
way back.
So I was connected to some friends of mine. So I was browsing through my friends. I was trying to get in touch with a friend. I couldn't get in touch with him on phone, so I wanted to send him a message through
Mm.
his hi-fi because I knew he was there all the time. And when I went there, I saw a picture on there, and I saw it was Stella's picture. First thought in my head was that, oh, she looks like one of those girls that think she's too hot, too cool for school. So I thought, yeah, let me go start problems. I didn't. I wanted problems. I didn't want peace. I want problems. So I went to go start some problems. I thought, let me look at her profile and find an angle to come from. And then I was looking through her profile. She goes, "What do you like?" I like gospel music. I love Jesus, and suddenly I felt like, "Oh, man,
Yeah,
she's like a Christian sister.
yeah,
Now I can't do that. So I
yeah.
thought,
Because you were Christian at the time, yeah. You
I
were
was a Christian at the time.
okay,
I
okay,
was I was a Christian at the time,
yeah.
and what do you call it? I thought, well, I came here to cause problems anyway. Now that I know she's Christian and she had some Kirk Franklin
Yeah,
songs there, songs that she likes. So I thought, now I can't really pick on her. So
yeah,
let me say hi. So I thought, let me say hi in my most Christian way.
yeah,
So I sent a message to her saying, Shalom, how are you? Ah, except about about 5 minutes later, I get a
yeah,
message back. And I thought, oh, she responded.
yeah,
And it's a long paragraph starting off with, how dare you? Don't you know I'm Christian? And then you come
Oh,
speaking Arabic to me. I thought, what?
oh,
So I'm in stitches now. I'm
yeah,
in absolute stitches. So what do you call it? I get back to her and I said to her, I apologize. It's not Arabic. It's actually Hebrew.
yeah,
And it means peace be with you. And she was a bit embarrassed. And so she laughed it off. Started chatting.
yeah,
No, nothing to make of it. Once in a while, say hello, da da
yeah,
da, and then realize that we're connected to quite a lot of friends.
yeah,
So I ended up one day just talking on the phone. It was a good chat,
yeah.
but it wasn't a pursuit at that point. It was
Okay,
definitely not a pursuit at that point. Um, but I got chatting to her, and one day I found out that she knew friends that lived right next door to my parents.
okay.
And she lived in the same area as I lived. I had
Mm,
never met her before. My siblings went to school with her brother.
yeah,
I had never ever met her before. So one day, this is Hackney, by the way. So
okay.
one day, I'm back home from uni, and she's back home from uni as well. And I'm walking through Hackney, and I see her, and I say hello,
Yeah,
and she looks at me suspiciously, like I've
yeah.
never seen you before. And
Why are you saying hello to
suddenly,
me?
you some kind of stalker. So then she realized my family actually lives in Hackney. She knows my brothers. She knows my sisters and things like that. So she was convinced that we didn't. I wasn't a stalker.
Yeah.
So we kept talking, but all this time I hadn't actually looked at her in any which way.
Okay. So up until this point, it's just
She
platonic
just good
friendship.
vibes. She's just good
Okay.
vibes. She's just
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
Funny enough, there was someone that I had been taken to cinema, see a movie and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and I thought this person was crazy, so I was getting advice from Seller
Okay.
about it. So we were cool.
Yeah.
But the person that I thought was crazy. So when I was younger, I was told I was taught that if something is not going to go somewhere, don't
Yeah.
waste the person's time. So as soon as I got a hint that this is not going somewhere,
Yeah.
I'd cut it off. That
Yeah.
got me in trouble lots of times because I was young and dumb and I didn't do it very nicely.
Right.
So I would make a call like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna work, so let's not go out again.
Oh
And
wow.
and, and that got me threatened quite a few times. They said
You threatened.
people's big brothers were ready to tell me what
Lay
for.
hands. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what do you call it? When it comes to Seller, we were just cool. We're just cool. And she didn't live too far from my local church at the time.
Okay.
And I used to do a lot of church, and there was a youth concert coming up.
Mm,
So I was getting things set up. I was getting lighting and stuff like that set up.
mm.
So I'm plugging in cables and stuff. So it's messy work.
Yeah.
If you've ever done the back end of church before,
Yeah.
it's quite a lot of manual work.
Yeah.
So she calls me and she goes, "Oh, where are you?" And I said, "I'm at the church."
Yeah.
She goes, "Well, I'm local. I'll come say hello." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And so she comes to the church and I'm sitting on the floor, I'm on my knees, I'm doing stuff, and
Yeah.
I get tired. So I sit down
Mm,
to just take a rest for a bit whilst I'm fixing some wires. She's dressed up. Well, she's not like dressed up to party, but she looks clean. But she
yeah.
sits on the floor with me
Yeah.
to talk. And that might seem like a little thing, but I had been around so many stush girls, if you
Yeah.
remember that term,
Yeah. Yeah.
stush.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
too nice, I'm too
Yeah.
cool. And she just chilled on the floor. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. Literally down to earth. Literally
Yeah,
down to
literally.
earth.
She sat down. Oh, what can I do? Started putting some wires together.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I'd hear her talk about her brothers and her mom and her dad. And then I'll talk to her about her ambitions in
Yeah.
terms of the kind of stuff that she wanted to do. And she was a rare combination of family person
Yeah.
and ambitious.
Yeah.
That is something I knew I wanted, but hadn't seen it in a lot of people.
Wow.
So I saw that and I thought, I like this lady.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she likes me or
Yeah.
not, but I like this lady. So I thought at that time, I'd have casual conversations with different people. I thought, nah, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to keep talking to you.
Yeah.
So I think it was at that moment when she came and sat down, I thought this woman is down to earth. There
Yeah.
were other moments that just solidified it as time went on, but it was at that moment I thought, you know what? I'm just going to focus here, see where this goes.
Wow.
See where this goes. I hadn't said to, oh, would you go out with me or anything like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Because and we get this into this later. I have my philosophy of, you know, the kind of progression you should take
Yeah.
that I think works when it comes to relationships. And for me, that just initial stage of can we click intellectually,
Yeah.
it was there. So there was space to then pursue, can we click spiritually?
Yeah.
So the physically, I had noticed that already, but
Hey,
hey, you
you
notice,
saw the
right?
picture. You
You
saw the
notice, you
picture.
notice, you
You saw
notice.
the picture.
But I was conscious enough. I had
Yeah.
been lucky enough to receive enough advice and been conscious enough to not focus on that because I think one uncle some time ago told me, Sam, if it's beauty you're looking for, you can find it anywhere. You
Yeah.
can find it in Timbuktu. You can find it in Afghanistan. So look for deeper.
Yeah.
So that's what he said. So I knew she was beautiful, but I thought, you
Yeah.
know what? If it's beauty I'm looking for,
Mm.
just physical beauty, I can find it anywhere. So what else is there?
Wow.
So you ignore the beauty for a moment.
Yeah.
It counts. Don't get me wrong, it
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you ignore it for a moment. And
Yeah.
then yeah. So that moment she sat down next to me and I thought, this chick is down to earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, me, you, we can vibe. We can
Yeah.
vibe. Let's
Yeah.
see where this goes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was
Believe it or
like
not, that's the short version of the
no, no,
story.
no, no. There's so much gold in there that I want to kind of unearth and chew on, if you can chew gold. So the fact that you were taught, you've made reference to the fact that you were taught. You've just made okay, funny reference, but it's still a reference about an uncle. So it sounds to me like they were people who had gone ahead of you in life, people who were older or whatever, who were around you, kind of speaking into your situation or speaking into um, potential decisions that you were going to make around dating. Would you say that that was a contributive factor to you then later on becoming intentional, or
Uh,
what was the process?
So I think yes, definitely a contributing factor. The funny thing is that most of these uncles that I took these pieces of advice from, I
Mm.
don't think they were being intentional in how what they were saying. They weren't really trying to speak into me because if I looked at their marriages, that's
Yeah.
not something I wanted.
Aha.
And if I'm being frank, a lot of the older generation, especially within the African and Caribbean community,
Yeah.
I struggle to find examples of marriages that I can say, God, if you can bless me with that, I'll be happy.
Wow.
So funny enough, advice they were giving me that I latched onto, I
Yeah.
don't think they took it themselves. So
Gosh.
it
Gosh.
definitely played a part in me being intentional. But the irony is that I think it was just passive conversation they were having with me
Yeah. Yeah.
that just stuck with me.
Yeah.
It just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And most of these uncles that I took these gems from, most of them
Yeah.
didn't exhibit those same pieces of advice in their own marriages, which is a
Gosh.
bit of a shame. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it was definitely intentional, but it came from ironically unintentional places.
Got you. Understood. Understood. And so you mentioned in terms of your family dynamic, you've got two boys. What are some of the lessons that you'll be teaching them intentionally about dating? And I know they're 8 and 5 respectively, or soon to be 5 respectively. So dating is at least 40 years away.
I hope so.
It's a long way away. That's what I say to Zachariah anyway. Zachariah, my son, he's 7 and he's talking about, marriage this and dating that. And I'm like, listen, that ain't on your agenda for at least another 40 years. But anyway, I'm jesting. What are some of the lessons that you will be intentionally, unintentionally kind of teaching them in preparation for dating?
I, I, I think for the boys, and I say for the boys especially,
Mm.
I wanna make sure they know their self-worth and the
Mm.
fact that they're also a prize.
Wow.
They're also a prize in the sense that um, in terms of how they give themselves away,
Right.
to remember that they are also a prize. They're not just pursuing, they get to choose who they pursue,
Yeah.
and whoever they pursue gets to be blessed by them. So they have to remember that they're also a prize, and that needs to be infused into everything that they do. You
Yeah.
know, when they're pursuing careers, when they're pursuing hard work, and so on and so forth,
Mm.
that they want to be a prize worth winning
Mm.
for whichever woman they decide to pursue. And I put it like that because I think very often it seems like guys can do whatever they want.
Mm.
When you're ready to fix up, then fix up.
Mm.
But if you're not lucky and you make certain fatal mistakes along the way, before you know it, you got baby mamas and things like that.
Mm.
And I have friends that have that,
Mm.
and it's no walk in the park.
Mm.
It's no walk in the park. So for the boys, um, I just need them to. I want to equip them with the tools to understand their self worth
Mm.
and find their confidence within God,
Mm.
and remember that internal strength that they have
Mm.
is secured within God in a way that nothing can touch it.
Mm.
Nothing can touch it. Even in the concept of 1,000 may fall by your side, your
Mm.
left, 10,000 by your right side. When your confidence is secure
Mm.
in God, you can be content,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So I want them to remember that they're a prize,
Mm.
and in that knowledge, be confident in what God has made them, so that they never ever fall into the trap that a lot of us fall into when we're younger, that we wanted to try chase girls,
Mm.
and it's almost like that's the goal. If you get lots of girls,
Mm.
then you've won. But I want them to know that if they can keep themselves
Mm.
and present themselves as
Mm.
unblemished as possible to their future spouse and things like that, that's a real win. Hopefully I can teach that lesson, because hopefully they see that as well.
That's, I mean, it's super, super powerful stuff that you're saying, Sam, because we reside in a world which teaches a completely opposite doctrine, right? That as a man, in order for you to receive that validation, that sense of worth, it is about notches on the bedpost. It is about um, the physical grading of whatever woman is on your arm at any particular time, right? You're seen as quote unquote the man when you've got uh, a 10 out of 10 Insta model on your arm, and you're seen as the man if you have a conveyor belt of these 10 out of 10 Instagram models on your arm. And that is completely diametrically opposed to what scripture instructs, but also actually when you do pursue that way of life, you're empty on the inside out completely. Whereas
You're pouring out.
just pouring out, continually pouring out. Whereas it sounds like your boys are being readily positioned to anchor themselves in Christ and know that their self-worth matters. It's huge. It's so, so huge. It's so, so huge. And so by extension, Sam, because you mentioned previously that you wanted to touch upon how to progress in the dating pathway.
uh,
No, but by extension of that, any young man listening to this who's trying to navigate this wild world that we live in, where the objectification of women is encouraged. Yes, we've got the hashtag Me Too, hashtag Times Up, the feminist uprising and the pulling down of misogynistic pillars in society. That's all well and good, but really, if you check James Bond, if you check music videos, if you check music lyrics, it's still very much encouraging that, right? Encouraging that
exactly.
behavior. So, what advice? It's a multi-layered question, but what advice would you give to a young man trying to navigate this wild world, trying to pursue purity and intentional dating, A, and by extension of that, what were your views on the right way to date in a progressive way?
That is a very loaded question. But before I even jump on that, for anyone listening, yes, I would give that advice to my boys. My girl almost goes without saying.
Yeah,
Plus,
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna have a baseball bat,
yeah.
if the
Big
or
thoughts.
cricket bat or whatever, So I've already told my wife that she has to be the same parent when it
Yeah,
comes to my daughter.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah. Anyway, so young men listening to me, all right. So, in terms of purity, it'll probably be an extension of that.
yeah. Mm.
That don't get me wrong. What's the age group of the listeners here? Is
Oh,
adults, right?
it's multi layered, so it's right.
Multi.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I can say this. There's nothing derogatory about it. Sex is good.
yeah. Mm,
It is good.
mm,
It was created by God.
yeah,
It is good.
100.
It's actually supposed to be an extension of our worship.
Mm,
Because what do you call it, when you enjoy the wife of your youth and so on and so forth, the Songs of Solomon, there's nothing bad about it,
mm,
but everything is contextual.
mm-hmm. Mm.
Everything is contextual. I digress a little bit to tell you a funny story I read somewhere.
Go on.
A shrimp stepped on a lion's feet whilst he was going. He was walking along the beach, and the lion said, "What the heck are you doing? Did you realize you just stomped on my feet?" Because I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Saying, no, 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 I'm going to beat you down. The lion says, and the shrimp goes, all right, wait, wait, wait. If you're going to beat me down, can you actually at least give me some time to prep for the fight so it can be a fair fight? It goes, you can have however long you want. He goes, oh, can I choose where we fight as well? You can choose the time, the place, wherever, and I'll still beat you down. So the day of the fight comes, and the shrimp asks that they fight in front of his house, which is under the water. And the lion goes to meet the shrimp in front of his house. By the time he got in front of the house, obviously he had drowned
Down.
because the
Yeah,
context was different, the environment was
yeah,
different, the context matters. Sex in
yeah.
the wrong context can be deadly.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
it can be absolutely deadly. It's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. In
Mm,
the wrong context, it
mm,
is deadly and it will leave you hollow and empty. That's
mm-hmm,
both for men and
mm,
for women. Just
yeah.
because men don't get pregnant,
Mm,
I don't think men get pregnant. I know that's controversial now.
mm.
So I hope your podcast doesn't
Truth.
get cancelled by
It's
by
truth.
me saying that.
It's
What do you
truth.
call it? Just because men don't get pregnant, it's almost like men can sow the royal oats and things
Mm,
like that. But the truth of the matter is that sex outside the right context
mm,
takes from you.
mm-hmm,
It's a give and take. Life is a complete cycle of give and take.
mm,
Everything is about reciprocity.
mm,
That's cause and effect.
mm,
There are conditions even to God's blessings.
mm-hmm,
There's a condition for everything, and when you violate that condition, it has an effect. And for the young men, purity. If you can't even remember to think about the biblical side of things because you might not be Christian, just remember um, the fact that you are pouring out every time you engage in these things. And
mm,
ask older men that have been sleeping around, and
mm,
they would tell you
mm,
most of these guys at night, they're dreaming of, I can't wait till I have my own wife I can come home to, kind
mm,
of thing. So, in terms of purity, yes, we can go down the biblical side of things. We can talk about soul ties. We can talk about the spiritual connection and all of that.
mm,
Or let's go for the most basic explanation. If you keep pouring out
mm,
into vessels that are not situated to pour back into you,
mm,
you end up empty. So for the young men, the same advice I'd give to my boys:
mm,
remember you're worth something.
mm,
And it's a shame if by the time you decide to settle down, you're a shell of a man,
mm,
and
mm,
the woman has to be the one picking you up. I
mm,
hear too much of, you know, stories where the man is the project,
mm,
and hoping for the woman to pick him up. You
mm,
know, because if you became the man I'm supposed to be. It's sweet, but
mm.
it's not supposed to be like that.
No, it's back to front. It's
we're
way back.
supposed to cultivate.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, sorry, I need to call.
Yeah.
We're supposed to cultivate our wives. We're supposed to be the priest of our households, but
Mm-hmm.
we end up in a lot of situations where the relationships are two people that are completely broken. And I'm particularly focusing on the men here,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
simply because I think there's a lot of voices trying to advise the women,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, you know what, not trying to fill the void
Mm-hmm.
with shallow love and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to show the men a bit of love today, in the sense that, look, um men also require that emotional stability,
Mm-hmm.
and purity matters.
Mm-hmm.
It matters in how we do that. Um, it doesn't sleeping around or premarital sex will never fill the void.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of advice to stay pure, um, just remember that if you're into gym and stuff like that, as you go to the gym, you need to fill up on your protein in order to nourish your body and things like that. If you're chasing the bag, as they put it, you have to work hard. You have to kind of make sure you're being innovative. You're working hard. You're working at the jobs. If it's two jobs you have to do, or if it's different business ideas you have to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that to be whole as a person, um, you have to apply that same system to every part of your life, you know. And from learning from other people, what I understood is that to be whole, there's the 7 areas that I always like to quote, which is you need to be spiritually healthy,
Mm-hmm.
physically healthy, mentally healthy,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally healthy,
Mm-hmm.
relationally healthy, vocationally, and financially. And when it comes to the spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
mental, and emotional, purity plays a good part,
Mm-hmm.
a big part in maintaining that, your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go get your mental health abused by bad relationships, or breakup after breakup
Mm-hmm.
after breakup, or emotionally become unstable because of just mixing and matching with damaged people,
Mm-hmm.
and you're damaged too. So
Mm-hmm.
so that's on the purity side of things. Just kind of apply the same principle you would apply to chasing a good body, to chasing finances and things like that. Apply that to your mental
Mm-hmm.
and spiritual and emotional health as well. We don't talk about men's emotional and mental health enough.
Nope. Nope.
And purity
Mm-hmm.
comes in there.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of dating,
Mm-hmm.
I think there are 4 stages.
Cool.
And
Cool. This is gold, by the way. Gold.
I think
Gold.
there are, I think there are 4 stages.
Yeah.
I think for most people, you see someone, it's the physical that attracts you
Mm-hmm.
first. But if you can catch yourself, you know, you see that lady and she's mesmerizing and all of that. If you can catch yourself, put a pin in it for a second. You acknowledge she's stunning, kind of thing. Put a pin in that. So I'm acknowledging the fact that you can't ignore the beauty,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
put a pin in it. But I think the first thing you need to test is intellectual attraction.
Mm,
Can you banter with them? Can you
mm,
laugh with them? Can you
mm,
debate with them?
yep.
Can you have a discussion with them?
Mm,
Can you be silent on the phone with them without it being awkward?
mm-hmm,
Can you have your ideas challenged without having your ego bruised?
mm,
Can they entertain opposing ideas? You
mm,
know, are you intellectually attracted to each other?
mm,
And that's important,
mm,
because that's where the like comes from.
mm-hmm.
I think it's important as married couples to like each other. It
Yeah.
is hard.
Preach, Pastor Sam.
Bro, if you don't like each other,
It's
forget about
long.
I'm in love and all of
Yeah,
that. If you
yeah,
don't
yeah,
like the person,
yeah,
and the like bit comes from the intellectual connection
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
when you find their jokes funny.
yeah.
You can banter with each other, you know. That's where you discuss your political views and so on and so forth. Do you like each other? From there, I think you take then a step to spiritual connection, because irrespective of whatever you follow, if you're spiritually unyoked, you're unequally yoked, that's a problem.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that, well, this person worships this and this person worships that. Yes, you can get married and all of that, but the truth of the matter is that sometimes it seems like we choose the path of most resistance on purpose.
Yeah.
If the Bible says that there's a path of least resistance, why am I going for the opposite?
Yeah.
But I'm putting that there because I know there are nuances whereby, what different stories can happen. But make sure spiritually you can have a sustainable relationship. So if you're going to go down the path whereby you're spiritually not equally yoked, is this sustainable? How about when it gets to the big questions? What do you guys turn to when the physical doesn't make sense, when the numbers don't add up, when the arguments can't be resolved? Do you have a baseline? That's where the spiritual stuff comes in. And it's really important that there has to be an ultimate arbiter between you. And if it's not God, what is it? Are you going to be watching YouTube video after YouTube? So I think intellectual attraction, spiritual attraction, and I put my hand up that I know that spiritual attraction bit can be complicated, but make sure at the very least you can have a sustainable relationship there. And then emotional. I think if you dabble with the emotional side of things, start catching feelings and entertaining feelings too early, it just obscures your judgment.
100%.
It completely obscures your judgment. 100%. That's why people that go on a whirlwind romance, and then one day they realize that I don't even like how you smell. I don't like how you squeeze the toothpaste. Because when the endorphins kick in, everything is beautiful. So I think if you lay the foundation of you can like each other, a lot of people say do the spiritual first. I put intellectual first, because if you don't like each other, you're not even going to be able to be compatible spiritually. And I've seen people that say they're compatible spiritually but don't like each other. That starts to erode the spiritual compatibility. You can't receive from the anointing you don't respect. That's across the board. I can't be receiving from a teacher who I don't find credible. If you don't like the person's, if eventually the spiritual bit is unsustainable, I can't submit to someone I don't even like, and I have to live with you. I have to see you every day. So intellectual, spiritual, emotional. Because by the time you get to the emotional, the foundations have been laid. You like each other. You cemented it with something deeper than that, which is the spiritual side of things. And hopefully you put God right at the center of it. And now you're allowed emotional. That's when you start to entertain the ideas of, I can see myself being married to this person. Wow. I think they're stunning. I think they're kind of hot, kind of thing. Because your judgment, you're sober. You're sober. Because right now you get to choose to love the person. Forget about, I fell in love with them. That's another whole discussion. Love is a sober decision. You make that decision when your feet are firmly planted on the ground, not on cloud nine.
Absolutely.
So by the time you get to the intellectual, emotional bit, you already have that foundation to make a sober decision. And if there's been enough grace and you've managed to get the spirit, the intellectual, the spiritual, and now you've allowed the emotional, when you hold their hand, you get butterflies and all of that. It becomes hard to contain it to just that without including the physical now. And if God is gracious enough and you take that step to get married, and I'm going to be old school here, because the price you pay for doing all of this outside of marriage is risky.
Yeah, man.
It's too risky.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm going to keep it old school here. That
yeah,
once you're married, allow the physical to come back in,
yeah.
and it's fireworks. And then you can really learn how to have godly kind of sex with each other. Not this one bam, thank you, ma'am thing that we see in movies. This nonsense. I'm talking about one of those ones that you look at your wife at church and she knows exactly what you're saying. She knows you're dropping the kids off at grandma's before you even get home because we're taking the praise and worship home. Yeah,
We're taking the praise and worship.
man,
Oh.
these people, when you do it outside the right
Yeah,
context, you
yeah,
guys don't know what you're missing. You
yeah.
don't know what you're
Wow.
missing, man.
Wow.
If you can't look at your wife with one eye and she knows exactly what Bible verse you're quoting, she knows you just go to the book of Solomon. Wow. Yeah. So on a serious note, I think the physical,
Yeah,
once you acknowledge it, put a pin in it,
yeah.
and by the time you allow it back in,
Mm,
you've done your due diligence. And
yeah,
that's what it is. You're a
yeah,
finance man, so you understand what I mean by
yeah,
due
yeah.
diligence. You've
100%.
checked the necessary factors and variables and decided that this risk is worth taking, because after all of that,
Yeah,
it's still a risk.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's still a risk. So even after that, it's a risk. Imagine taking that step to get all physical and
Yeah,
emotional
yeah,
without doing any due diligence.
yeah.
It's a bad investment.
Car crash, car crash, car crash. This is gold, 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 gold. And so as we come into land, Sam, like once again, thank you so much for sharing the wisdom. It's a lot. A double-headed question. What has God taught you about marriage, and what has marriage taught you about God?
What has God told me about marriage? I thought I knew what sacrifice was.
Mm,
And when I heard about it in the Bible, I thought I understood it.
mm,
In the context of marriage, I began to understand what sacrifice really was.
mm,
And in the same vein, what marriage has taught me about God is that I have to be authentic with God.
mm,
I can't hide behind platitudes and
mm,
not face the real cocoa of the situation
mm,
and try to, Christianicify it
mm,
and not face the real thing. So when things are not good,
mm,
and I think I can smoothen it over with sweet talking, that it doesn't work in marriage.
mm,
And I guess the biggest thing I've learned as far as understanding sacrifice and understanding that you have to be authentic, if I bring it all together, is communicating expectations as
mm,
soon as you're aware of them,
mm,
because there are expectations we come into marriage or into relationships with that we don't know we have.
mm,
And what's unfair is to go hard on someone for not meeting an expectation you didn't even know you had.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So I think being authentic means once you realize that there is an expectation,
yeah. Mm,
you communicate that as
mm,
soon as possible.
mm,
And people seem to think once you've communicated it, it means someone should oblige by it.
mm,
Not really the case.
mm,
I think you have to be completely open to negotiating
mm,
everything. So communicate that expectation, but that's just half the thing.
mm,
And that's the authenticity. But if you can be that authentic,
mm,
allow the other person that room to be authentic back with you.
mm,
And that's when it starts to happen in terms of communicating effectively. So I think it's about communicating expectation
mm,
as soon as you know it. And that's my walk with God now, because sometimes I think, God, I've got this, and sometimes I feel broken. I feel like, God, I can't go on anymore. And that's not just married, that's that's in general life. And sometimes I have to go to God and say, God, this is how I'm feeling. And there's something really liberating about that. And it is also liberating to be able to go to your wife, your spouse, and say to them, this is what I'm upset about, and communicate that to them, and then give them the opportunity to respond. So I think that's what I learned, that and that's part of sacrificing your feels, sacrificing how you feel for the moment to just have that conversation. And I think that's what I learned, that understanding God helped me put sacrifice and marriage into perspective. And putting that into perspective helped me be more authentic with God when I'm praying, and not pretend with God. And vice versa. I'm able to do that with my wife. That means sometimes the discussions are 4 hours long, or 5 hours long, or take a break, go to sleep, and come back. And prior to that, there was a lot of shouting matches. Everybody stand in your ground, kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of hard to answer it succinctly. Is folks going to do. I've learned sacrifice from God. I've learned authenticity from God, and I've learned how to communicate. I've learned to communicate expectations as soon as I know them.
Sam, this has been incredible, remarkable, helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.